It was supposed to be a quiet Saturday, just another community barbecue in the cul-de-sac. Balloons danced lazily in the breeze, kids squealed near the bounce house, and smoke curled up from a dozen grills. My daughter, Lily, was beaming in her little pink wheelchair, giggling as she held her stuffed bunny close to her chest. The neighborhood had gathered for a good time, for connection, for a break from HOA politics. But what happened next would scar every person who stood on that pavement. It started with a voice, cold, venomous, and loud enough to split the air. "Get away from her!" Karen's shriek sliced through the hum of laughter. I turned, confused, as silence fell like a curtain. There she stood, her face twisted in something between rage and hysteria, her eyes locked on Lily. And in her hand was a gun. Gasps spread like wildfire. Someone dropped a plate. Kids stopped mid-step. One mother screamed. Karen's arm was raised, unwavering, locked, and she was aiming directly at my daughter's chest. At her chest, my legs refused to move. My wife's voice cracked beside me. "What are you doing?" "That's a child." But Karen didn't blink. "She's hiding something. In that toy. I saw her do it. That's not just a stuffed animal." Her voice trembled with some twisted conviction, as if this entire outburst made sense, like pulling a gun on a disabled 5-year-old was a logical thing to do. Lily clutched her bunny tighter, her small hands shaking. Her eyes, God, those innocent eyes searched mine for safety, for answers. But I didn't have any. Not in that moment. Not when a woman who was supposed to be a neighbor stood ready to kill over a fabricated delusion. I stepped forward, shielding my daughter, my hands raised. "Karen, please. You're scaring her. Put down." But Karen only stepped closer. The barrel twitched. Her knuckles whitened. You don't get it. No one ever listens. You all think I'm crazy, but I see what's going on. I see what you people are hiding in this neighborhood. Police sirens wailed in the distance. Someone must have called them. But it didn't matter. Time had frozen. My daughter was inches away from death, and our entire neighborhood stood frozen like statues, caught between disbelief and fear. It wasn't about rules anymore. It wasn't about grass height, paint colors, or sidewalk chalk. And that was the moment I realized the HOA was no longer about keeping order, it had become a war zone. Before all the chaos, before police tape-lined our sidewalks, before neighbors whispered our names with either pity or fear, we were just a quiet family, trying to enjoy the little things in life. My name is Daniel, a software consultant who had traded the hustle and stress of inner-city living for what I believed would be peace, security, and a fresh start. My wife, Emily, was a nurse, nurturing by nature, and the true heartbeat of our home. But the star of our world was our daughter, Lily, 5 years old, fiercely imaginative, and living with a rare condition that left her partially paralyzed from the waist down since birth. She was our miracle baby, our warrior in a wheelchair, with a giggle that could soften steel, and a spirit too big to be contained by her tiny body. When we moved into Pinebrook Meadows, we genuinely thought we had found our haven. Tucked just outside the city limits, the neighborhood looked like something from a lifestyle magazine. Picture-perfect houses with evenly trimmed lawns, white fences, porch swings, and golden retrievers. A lake shimmered at the far end of the cul-de-sac. There were summer potlucks, winter holiday light competitions, and neighborhood yard sales. People smiled when they walked by. They waved. They brought banana bread when you moved in. It all seemed so normal. So safe. Lily loved it here instantly. Every afternoon after preschool, she'd wheel herself down the sidewalk in her sparkly chair with that same bunny tucked on her lap. Benny, the stuffed rabbit that had survived surgeries, ER visits, and nightmares. She'd stop to chat with Miss Rachel across the street who baked cookies, just because she'd giggle with the twins 2 doors down who thought her wheelchair was the coolest thing ever. And every Saturday, we'd have our little ritual, pancake breakfast, cartoons, and a walk or wheel around the block where Lily would point out the ducks near the pond and name them all. The HOA, Pinebrook Meadows Homeowners Association, seemed at first glance like part of the charm. A group of well-meaning volunteers keeping the community neat and orderly. We were introduced to them our first week at a little welcome gathering hosted at the community center. Karen was there, head of the HOA board. She wore a pastel pantsuit, her blonde bob stiff with hairspray, and a smile that never quite reached her eyes. "We just love new families," she said, shaking my wife's hand a little too firmly. Then she crouched to Lily's level, and I'll never forget what she said. "Well, aren't you special?" she cooed. "We'll have to make sure everything stays safe for you." It sounded warm, almost sweet, until I saw the way she immediately scanned Lily's chair like it didn't belong. In the beginning, Karen's name floated through most community conversations. She organized the garden club, enforced the community rulebook like scripture, and made it her mission to welcome or warn every new family. There was something performative about it, though. She'd smile as she complimented your lawn, but make you feel like your shrubs needed immediate pruning. She once knocked on our door just to tell us Lily's chalk drawings were adorable, then casually reminded us that sidewalk art wasn't allowed per Article 6, Section B of the Community Guidelines. "But don't worry," she added with a wink. "We won't say anything this time." We brushed it off. Everyone has quirks. And the rest of the board, Mr. Jenkins, who ran the finances, and Mona, the elderly events coordinator, seemed perfectly pleasant. Besides, we were just so grateful to see Lily thriving. Her condition had been hard. In our old apartment building, elevators broke down and sidewalks were cracked. But here, Lily had ramps. She had friends. She had freedom. Still, over time, those red flags began to deepen in color. Karen started showing up more frequently, always under the guise of checking in. She'd comment on how Lily left her toys on the porch. She once asked if we thought our accessible ramp looked a little industrial and suggested we paint it to match the neighborhood aesthetic. I told myself she meant well, that her obsession with order was just overzealousness. But Emily wasn't so sure. One afternoon, I came home from work and found Emily standing in the kitchen, visibly shaken. She was just watching her, she said. Karen had stood across the street, hands on her hips, for almost 10 minutes while Lily played with sidewalk toys. She didn't say anything, didn't wave, just watched. Emily waved first. Karen only turned and walked away. That was the moment something shifted. It wasn't just a nosy neighbor. It was surveillance. It didn't stop there. During one HOA meeting, Karen suggested implementing a new rule about play materials being left in common areas. She didn't say Lily's name, but we knew. The rest of the board nodded without question. She also brought up noise levels from children during the afternoons. Again, no names, just implications. We'd leave meetings feeling like we were the problem in a neighborhood we'd worked so hard to join. Then came the violations, paper notices taped to our door, minor infractions that never seemed to affect anyone else. Our trash cans were out too early. Our welcome mat was faded. Once we were warned for leaving the stroller ramp down too long, it wasn't a stroller. It was a portable ramp for Lily's chair. We appealed, of course, and won. But it didn't matter. The message was clear: we were being watched, and yet, for all of that, we tried to stay civil. We brought cupcakes to the spring social. We waved when we saw Karen walking her dog. We told Lily not to worry when she noticed Karen glaring at her once. Some people just don't understand, Emily told her gently. But that's okay. We'll keep being kind. But the tension kept building. The whispers. The way some neighbors stopped inviting us to gatherings. The way Karen's friends on the board never questioned her authority. And the way Karen, for all her smiles, seemed to take Lily's very existence as an inconvenience. Like our daughter's wheelchair somehow disrupted the balance of her manicured world. Looking back now, it all seems so obvious, the slow unraveling of peace. The way Karen positioned herself like the gatekeeper of morality, decency, and aesthetics. But at the time, we just wanted to fit in, to belong, to raise our daughter in a place that felt safe. We didn't realize that safety was already an illusion, because beneath the pastel walls, the flower beds, and the picket fences, Pinebrook Meadows had a rot. And Karen was the root. We just hadn't seen how deep it went. Not yet. It happened on a Wednesday. I remember because it was the first sunny afternoon after a long stretch of gray, rainy days. Lily had been cooped up inside for nearly a week, and when the clouds finally parted, she was practically vibrating with excitement to get outside. I helped her into her wheelchair, and she grabbed Benny, her ever faithful stuffed bunny, before zooming down the ramp with that same spark in her eyes that always melted my heart. Emily set up her art supplies on the porch while I watered the front shrubs. Lily was chalking smiley suns and rainbows across our corner of the sidewalk, vivid, colorful bursts of joy, as if she was determined to bring color back to the block. Some neighbors even walked by and smiled, one older man commenting, "That's the brightest thing I've seen all week." But then Karen appeared, like a thunderclap in clear skies, marching across the street with her clipboard clutched against her chest like a badge of authority. She didn't even glance at me. She marched right past, heels clacking, until she was standing directly in front of Lily. "That needs to come off. Now." Her voice was sharp, cold, and commanding. Lily blinked, confused. She thought maybe she'd done something wrong. "Excuse me?" I called out, setting the watering can down and walking toward them. Emily followed close behind me. "This is a violation," Karen said, jabbing her pen toward the sidewalk drawings. "Public walkways must remain clear of markings. It's in the bylaws." I looked at the sidewalk. It was a sunny day. The drawings would wash away with the next hose down or overnight dew. "Karen, it's just chalk," Emily said, keeping her tone even. "It's not paint. She's a child." "A child with no sense of boundaries, apparently," Karen snapped, eyes narrowing at Lily. And that was it. That was the moment the line was crossed, not a toe over, not a slip, but a full-throated stomp over a boundary we never thought anyone would dare to cross. My daughter flinched. Emily's hand tightened around mine. I took a slow breath and said, "I think you need to take a step back." Karen turned on me like I'd insulted her lineage. "I'm doing my duty as HOA president," she hissed. "This neighborhood has rules. If you people can't follow them, then perhaps Pinebrook Meadows isn't the right place for your family." The phrase, "you people," hung in the air like a bad smell. I don't know if it was the implication that stung more, or the smug way she said it, like we were lesser, like we didn't belong. By now, other neighbors had begun to emerge from their homes, drawn by the raised voices. Miss Rachel stood at her window. The older man from earlier stood frozen with his dog mid-walk. Karen must have noticed the eyes because she straightened her posture, raising her voice further, as if to perform. "The HOA exists to maintain order, not enable disorder. It's not personal. It's policy." But it was personal. Everyone could feel it. It wasn't about chalk. It was about control. About Karen needing to assert dominance in the most public, demeaning way she could. Emily stepped forward, gently positioning herself between Karen and Lily. "You've made your point," she said calmly, though I could feel the heat rising under her skin. "If you have a real concern, bring it to the board. Don't berate a child on the sidewalk." Karen scoffed. "You should be grateful anyone's even tolerating this. Not everyone appreciates the circus you've brought to our street." That word, circus, cut deep, and it wasn't lost on anyone watching. I saw the look on Mr. Jenkins' face as he walked up from the next driveway. His eyes flicked from Karen to Lily and back again. "Karen," he said hesitantly, "maybe we can de-escalate here. It's chalk, for God's sake." Karen's lips twitched, and she dropped the clipboard to her side, but not before glaring daggers at him, as if even his attempt at reason was betrayal. Later that evening, we filed a formal complaint with the HOA board. We detailed Karen's behavior, her public harassment of a disabled child, and the veiled threats. We thought, surely, the board would do the right thing. But we were wrong. The next week, we received an email stating the matter had been reviewed and closed with no action required. It claimed Karen had acted within her authority and that any further escalation would be seen as harassment of board members. We sat there in our living room, rereading the email in disbelief. Harassment? Of them? Emily's hands trembled as she closed her laptop. "They're covering for her," she said, her voice small but full of rage. "They're enabling her." It was the first time we truly understood that this wasn't just a difficult neighbor. Karen wasn't just strict or misunderstood, she was protected, shielded by bureaucracy emboldened by silence, and propped up by a system that valued appearances over justice. And in that moment, something shifted in us. We weren't just disappointed, we were furious. Not just for ourselves, but for Lily. Because our daughter deserved better than a neighborhood that treated her like a nuisance. She deserved more than polite compliance and false civility. And we began to realize this was never going to end on its own. Karen had declared war. She just hadn't seen yet that we were ready to fight back. The weeks that followed felt like we were living inside a slow-burning nightmare, the kind that starts with whispers and shadows, but eventually swallows the sun. After the chalk incident and the HOA board's complete dismissal of our formal complaint, we thought the worst had passed. But in truth, it was only the opening move in a larger, more vicious game. Karen had tested the waters, and now, realizing she could act without consequence, she dove in headfirst armed with bylaws and board votes like weapons. The violations came first, rapid-fire and relentless. One morning we'd wake up to a paper notice taped to our front door claiming our recycling bin wasn't compliant. Another day, it was that our porch light was too bright and disrupting community ambience. Then it was the color of Lily's wind chimes, which supposedly violated HOA-approved color palettes. Petty, absurd things, but they added up. Each one came with an implied threat of fines, and each one was documented with a timestamp and an anonymous resident complaint, conveniently never traceable. But we knew who was behind it. Karen had gone from passive-aggressive remarks to full-blown warpath, and she was using the HOA board like her personal militia. Mr. Jenkins, who once stood up during the chalk incident, suddenly stopped responding to our emails. Mona, the sweet elderly woman who baked pies for every meeting, began avoiding eye contact. A new rule was passed at the next board meeting, unannounced, buried in technical language, stating that families with special needs accommodations must submit bi-monthly documentation justifying the necessity of any external accessibility fixtures. We had to fight tooth and nail just to keep Lily's ramp from being forcibly removed for reinspection. When we asked who had proposed this new policy, Karen smiled tightly and said, "It came from community feedback." Neighbors began to take sides, though few were brave enough to say so out loud. A few kind souls, Miss Rachel, and an Army vet named Dennis 2 houses down, quietly offered support. "You're not crazy," Dennis muttered one evening. "She's been a snake in this grass for years. Now she's got poison." But most people said nothing. The street that once buzzed with block parties and laughter had gone cold. Doors closed a little faster. Conversations paused when we walked by. There was a fear spreading through the neighborhood, fear of Karen, and fear of becoming the next target. One family moved out quietly. They left no forwarding address. Another was suddenly fined 3 times in 1 week. Their crime? A backyard, trampoline visible from the street. And then came the threats, small at first but unmistakable. A rock through our mailbox. Scratched paint across the side of our van, the side with the handicap-accessible sticker. Lily's name was written in sidewalk chalk by someone else, not in joy, but scrawled in angry capital letters with arrows pointing toward our house. Violation written underneath in red. The final straw came one night when we came home late from a family dinner and found Lily's wheelchair ramp blocked. Someone had dumped 4 heavy cinder blocks right at the base of it. Our daughter sat in the car while I threw them aside, shaking, my heart pounding in my ears. She didn't say anything, but she clutched Benny to her chest like a shield, and that silence broke me. We began documenting everything. Every notice, every suspicious car, every overheard conversation. I installed cameras, one on the porch, one above the ramp, and one facing the street. Emily kept a folder of every violation letter, time-stamped and scanned. We began recording HOA meetings on our phones. But no matter how much proof we gathered, no matter how many times we pointed to policy or law, it all led back to the same closed doors and same stone-faced board. The HOA had become Karen's empire, and we were her insurgents. She held the power of technicalities. She controlled the fines. She curated the narrative. When she spoke, the board listened. When we spoke, we were problematic, defensive, or worse, emotional. Karen had mastered the art of weaponized civility. She never raised her voice. She smiled as she sank knives. She invoked neighborhood standards like scripture and wielded community safety like a sword. But beneath it all, her target was clear. She wanted us gone. And most terrifying of all, she was willing to make Lily collateral damage in her crusade. She began suggesting during meetings that perhaps our family required professional evaluation for neighborhood fit. She spoke in coded language, long-term compatibility, disruption mitigation, safety assurance for all residents. It was chilling. This wasn't just harassment. It was eugenics dressed in khakis and pearls. The language of HOA politics became her camouflage and her weapon. It made everything she did seem orderly, measured, even justified. But we knew what it really was: hate. Still, we refused to be driven out. We reinforced the ramp. We doubled down on attending board meetings, making public records of her behavior. We wrote letters to the city, contacted disability advocacy groups, and began building a network of allies. A local news reporter, someone Dennis knew, began sniffing around, intrigued by the stories. But Karen caught wind, and she escalated again. Lily's school bus stop was relocated without warning, an anonymous community request citing noise disruption and traffic interference. The bus driver was confused. We were furious. Lily missed 3 days of school while we fought to restore the stop. Then, our backyard lights were reported as hazards and forcibly removed. A noise complaint was filed during Lily's birthday party, during the cake cutting. Someone called animal control on our dog, Daisy, claiming she was aggressive. Daisy, a golden retriever, hadn't barked in 3 years. We felt like we were under siege. Our home, once filled with warmth, comfort, and laughter, became a bunker. Emily started sleeping with one eye open. I couldn't focus at work. And Lily? She stopped going outside. The little girl who once painted the sidewalks with joy now watched the world from behind the living room window, too scared to play, too anxious to smile. "Is she going to take Benny away?" she whispered one night. That question shattered me in ways I can't explain. We reached out to the HOA Oversight Committee at the county level, filing a formal complaint backed by evidence and community witness statements. They promised to investigate. But bureaucracy moves slower than Karen's cruelty. Meanwhile, the board quietly passed another rule. Homeowners recording meetings without prior approval would be subject to expulsion from a room. We were now being gagged, even as we bled. Yet, somewhere in all this madness, something else started to stir. Quiet resistance. Neighbors began talking again, at least some did. Miss Rachel wrote an anonymous letter supporting us and slipped it under our door. A couple down the block, previously silent, offered to speak to the Oversight Committee on our behalf. Dennis installed a second ramp camera when ours mysteriously malfunctioned. The walls weren't crashing down on Karen, not yet, but they were beginning to creak. Still, it wasn't enough, because Karen wasn't done, and the worst was still to come. We thought we had seen the peak of her wrath. But the moment she aimed a gun at our disabled daughter in front of our entire neighborhood was when her mask finally slipped all the way off. That day hadn't come yet, but the road toward it was already paved with venom, silence, complicity, and fear. And we were already walking it step by terrifying step. It was the 4th of July, the one day of the year our neighborhood felt like a real community again. Barbecue smoke hung in the air, kids ran with sparklers, and folding chairs dotted the front lawns like patches of good intentions. After weeks of tension, it seemed people were trying to reclaim some sense of normalcy. The HOA had organized the event like clockwork as they did every year, but this time, the mood was different. There was an unspoken rule hanging in the air: keep things light, keep things distant. Even Karen, dressed in her signature red, white, blue sundress with a clipboard in hand, was playing her part, smiling tightly, patrolling the block, greeting people she had once fined for grass inconsistencies like it had never happened. We tried to blend in. Emily brought fruit salad. I helped man the grill for a while, and Lily, she was glowing. It was the first time in weeks she wanted to be outside. She had her bunny clutched to her lap and wore a crown of plastic stars the twins next door had given her. She rolled up and down the sidewalk giggling, asking everyone if they wanted to see her freedom dance. And for a moment, just a moment, it felt like we were part of the world again. But peace doesn't last long in war zones. It started when Lily wheeled up near the community tent, the one where Karen stood, organizing the fireworks schedule. She had drawn a small American flag on the pavement with chalk. Right at the edge of the tent, the softest red, white, and blue lines traced with careful hands. "Look what I made." Lily beamed, pointing to it. A few people clapped. Someone even cheered. But Karen froze. Her eyes locked onto the chalk, like it was graffiti on her soul. "Not again," she hissed under her breath. She marched toward Lily, fast, lips pursed, fists clenched. Emily and I saw it happening, and we moved quickly, but not quickly enough. Karen stood towering over Lily, her body stiff, her voice shaking. "You were told not to draw on HOA property," she snapped. "I warned you." Lily blinked, confused. "It's just a flag. It's for America." Her tiny voice trembled. A crowd was forming. People began turning their heads. Phones lifted. Parents quieted their kids. Karen's face twisted. "You think your disability gives you a free pass to disrespect this community? To disrespect me?" she barked. My heart dropped. I lunged forward, Emily right behind me. "Karen, back up now," I shouted. "She's a child. She's not hurting anyone." And then, as if a wire snapped in her mind, Karen reached into her purse, pulled something black and cold-looking, and aimed it directly at Lily's chest. A collective gasp surged through the crowd like a wave crashing in slow motion. For a moment, everything froze. The music, the laughter, even the air. The sun seemed to dim. The world funneled into a tunnel of terror. The gun, unmistakably real, trembled in her hand, but her grip was firm. "She's hiding something in that toy," Karen screamed, pointing at Benny, Lily's stuffed rabbit. "She's been using it to smuggle something. I saw her. I know what I saw. You all laugh at me, but I see it." Her voice cracked. Her eyes were wide and wild, her hair slightly out of place. She wasn't just angry. She was gone. Emily screamed first, a mother scream, raw and instinctual. I dropped to my knees in front of Lily, arms outstretched, shielding her body with mine. I could feel her shaking, her bunny clutched tighter than ever. "Karen, put the gun down," someone shouted. Phones were filming. A man tried to step forward, but Karen jerked the gun toward him. "Don't," she barked. "Don't you dare. I'm not crazy. You all think I'm crazy, but I know the truth. She's not innocent, none of them are." Her voice cracked again, now shifting into sobs. "They've been plotting, undermining me, turning the board against me. All of you. You'll see." Children were crying now. A baby wailed. Someone called out, "Call the cops." Another tried to guide their kids away, but tripped over a chair. One neighbor began backing up, phone still recording, whispering a prayer under her breath. The tension was unbearable. My arms trembled. My body was blocking Lily's entirely, but I could feel her tiny fingers gripping my shirt. "Daddy," she whispered, "is she going to shoot me?" That single sentence shattered something inside me I can never piece back together. Police sirens echoed faintly in the distance, too far, not fast enough. Karen's arm remained outstretched. "Give me the toy," she screamed again. "She's hiding something in there. Drugs. A camera. I saw it." Emily was sobbing beside me, one hand on my back, the other stretched toward Lily's chair. "Karen, please," she begged. "Don't do this. You're scaring everyone. This is a child, our child. She's done nothing wrong." Karen's eyes darted wildly. For a flicker of a second, she looked uncertain, like the fog of rage lifted just enough to let the weight of the moment crash in. She blinked, looked at the crowd, saw the phones, the tears, the police cars now turning the corner. And then she dropped the gun. It didn't hit the pavement with a bang. More like a soft thud, anticlimactic against the weight of what had nearly happened. An officer shouted, "Hands in the air." Karen froze, then slowly raised her trembling hands. "I didn't mean to hurt her," she whispered. "I was trying to protect the neighborhood." The crowd parted as police approached, weapons drawn, voices loud. They cuffed her right there, on the lawn, in front of the very flag Lily had drawn. Neighbors watched in stunned silence. Some cried. Others just stood there, unmoving, as if unsure what reality they were living in. But what came next felt almost more painful than the incident itself. As the officers led Karen toward the squad car, she twisted her neck back and pointed directly at us. "They provoked me," she shouted. "They manipulated everything. They made me look like a threat. They did this." She wasn't apologetic. She wasn't remorseful. She was delusional and desperate to rewrite the story. The HOA board said nothing. Not a word. Not as Karen was escorted away. Not as paramedics checked Lily's vitals. Not as Emily wept into my chest while reporters arrived like vultures. Not even when half the neighborhood begged for them to speak. The board members stood at a distance, pale and hollow, as if detaching themselves from the monster they had allowed to grow in plain sight. No statements, no apologies, just silence. The same silence they had mastered all along. But everything had changed. The illusion of order had shattered. The truth of the HOA's corruption, Karen's sickness, and our neighborhood's cowardice lay bare for all to see. The gun may not have fired, but the damage had been done, and nothing would ever be the same again. The days following the incident unraveled like the slow cracking of a dam. What began with one horrific act, a woman pulling a loaded gun on a disabled child in broad daylight, erupted into a tidal wave of consequences that not only swept through our lives but drenched the entire HOA in long-buried truth. By the next morning, the video footage had already gone viral. Someone posted the entire incident, Karen's scream, the gun raised, the raw panic, my daughter's trembling voice, on social media with the caption, "HOA president pulls gun on disabled girl over chalk drawing." It didn't take long for local news outlets to pick it up. Then national, then the world. Within 24 hours, our quiet cul-de-sac was the epicenter of a media firestorm. Satellite vans lined our street. Reporters huddled behind makeshift barricades. Microphones were shoved in our faces at every step. Everyone wanted to know how something like this could happen in a community like ours. And we told them everything. We showed the cameras, the violation notices, the blocked ramps, the chalk policy changes, the rulebook entries rewritten with precision to target one little girl's way of living. We showed them the timeline, the appeals we made, the unanswered complaints, the recordings of meetings where Karen's behavior was excused, minimized, or brushed off entirely. We showed them the bruises beneath the pretty white fences and the rot beneath the manicured lawns. And we told them the truth. The HOA didn't just fail to stop Karen, they empowered her. What followed was a legal reckoning so swift it left even the most composed board members scrambling for cover. Karen was arrested on multiple charges, brandishing a weapon, endangering a child, assault with a deadly weapon, and aggravated harassment under hate crime statutes. She was denied bail. During the first court hearing, she appeared in a wrinkled suit and wild eyes, still convinced she had done the right thing. The prosecutor laid it out clearly. She hadn't just lost control. She had waged a years-long campaign of harassment against a disabled child and her family, using her position of authority to veil personal vendettas as policy. The video footage, combined with statements from over a dozen neighbors, many of whom finally found the courage to speak out, created an overwhelming wall of evidence. Her own HOA emails, once subpoenaed, revealed a chilling obsession. She referred to our daughter as a symbol of disorder and even drafted plans to file child welfare reports simply to destabilize the family unit. It was sociopathic, calculated, cruel. Meanwhile, the HOA board didn't escape the fallout either. An independent investigation was launched by the county's Office of Neighborhood Governance. Within weeks, 3 board members resigned. Mr. Jenkins issued a public apology, admitting that the board had failed to act in the face of escalating behavior. Mona quietly stepped down and moved to live with her sister. The association's insurance dropped them. A class action lawsuit was filed, not just by us, but by other families who had been silently terrorized by Karen's reign, too afraid to speak until now. Under pressure, the HOA was dissolved. The community voted unanimously to replace it with a new neighborhood council overseen by an independent third-party committee until a permanent structure could be established. Karen's name was scrubbed from every website, every bulletin board, every public mention. But the memory? That would take longer to erase. As for us, we took it day by day. Lily began therapy, both physical and emotional. Her sparkle took time to return. She wouldn't go outside alone anymore. Not for weeks. Not until we repainted the sidewalk in front of our house together, using chalk in every color she loved. Emily took a leave of absence from work. I did too. We focused inward, on healing, on rebuilding trust with a world that had, for a time, turned hostile to our very presence. But slowly, kindness returned. Neighbors brought food. Letters came in from strangers all over the country. One woman from Ohio sent Lily a hand-sewn bunny with a note, "For the bravest little girl I've ever seen." A group of veterans from a nearby county came and helped install a new, more secure ramp, this one stronger, wider, and painted with rainbows. One evening, weeks after the dust had settled, Lily asked, "Is she gone now?" And we told her yes. Karen was no longer part of our story. Not in our street. Not in our lives. Not in our neighborhood. She was facing trial and justice, long overdue, was finally in motion. But what surprised us most in the aftermath wasn't just the justice or the exposure. It was how the community began to change. People talked more, watched out for each other more, spoke up faster. The fear that had silenced them for so long had broken, and in its place was a kind of collective courage. A refusal to ever let someone like Karen rise again under the mask of order. For us, the scars remain. We'll never forget the look in our daughter's eyes when that gun was pointed at her. We'll never unhear the silence of a neighborhood that once stood by and watched. But we survived, we stood our ground, and we told the truth even when the system tried to bury it. We fought not just for our family, but for every family who has ever been told to stay quiet, sit down, and let power run wild. And though justice doesn't erase trauma, it does plant seeds. Seeds of change, seeds of hope. And maybe, just maybe, that's enough to start growing something new. Something kinder. Something real. In the end, this was never just a story about chalk on the sidewalk or a clipboard-wielding woman obsessed with rules. It was a story about what happens when a community allows monsters to grow, not in the shadows, but right out in the open, disguised in politeness, policy, and power. We didn't move to Pinebrook Meadows looking for conflict. We moved there hoping for peace, for belonging, for a place where our daughter could roll down the street with her stuffed bunny and feel like she was part of something safe. But peace, we've learned, isn't just something you find. It's something you have to protect. And when that peace is threatened, when someone believes they have the right to intimidate, isolate, and nearly destroy a child just because of her disability, you don't just back down. You rise. You speak. You fight. Because if you don't, no one else will. Our daughter, Lily, is stronger than any policy. Her spirit shines brighter than any petty HOA violation. She didn't deserve to become the target of fear, obsession, or hatred, but when she did, we stood by her. And now, we stand by every family who's ever felt silenced in their own neighborhood. Every parent who's been gaslit by authority. Every child who's been made to feel like their existence is a burden. What happened to us could have happened to anyone. And that's why we're telling this story, not for pity, not for drama, but for truth. Because the only way to stop people like Karen is to expose the systems that protect them. We didn't move for war. We moved for peace. But when peace is threatened, sometimes you must stand, not just for your home, but for what's right. Let this be a reminder. Disability is not disorder. Inclusion is not optional. And silence, in the face of injustice, is complicity. If our story moved you, do something. Share it. Talk about it. Look out for your neighbors. Challenge the Karens of this world, not with rage, but with truth. with facts, with courage. And if you've ever felt alone in your fight, hear us clearly now. You are not alone. This is more than just a story. This is a movement. One voice, one block, one family at a time. Subscribe, leave a comment, and share this video because someone out there needs to know they're not crazy, they're not weak, and they are not alone. Together, we can build communities where rules protect, not persecute, where difference is embraced, not feared. This is HOA Denied Access, and we are just getting started.